Hi, it's Steve here from Space and the Broomhouse Hub, talking about growing herbs at home today. We've got a variety of herbs here. We've got coriander, we've got some flat leaf parsley, oregano, and some basil. Now, all of these are suitable for growing at home. The coriander, the parsley, and the oregano will do fine outside in pots or in the ground. But the basil really needs a bit of warmth and a bit of protection. So really, that's best grown on your windowsill. I've got some at home at the moment that I'm growing on my windowsill, and they're about this size. And they were started at the same time as some that I've got growing outside, which are not much bigger than this. So that demonstrates the effect of the heat on the rate of growth. They really do need that bit of warmth to really sort of like flourish.
So Steve, would you start all of those seeds inside? Would you start them all on the window ledge and then put them outside, or would you just plant them outside?
A good question. So these are all about maybe a month to 6 weeks old.
Right.
We sowed these in seeds in our garden.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these take quite a while to germinate. Actually, the parsley and the coriander can take sort of like between 10 and 20 days from putting them in the soil to them actually poking their heads up through the surface. But yeah, all of these can be started at home. You can sort of like start them inside.
Yeah.
It's not going to be too hot for them to germinate, as long as they're not sort of like sat in a really sort of like hot windowsill where there's lots of sun sort of like coming through the window. That's just going to dry the compost out too much and the developing seedling. But equally, they should all germinate outside as well. If you were just to sort of like sow them outside. But just to reiterate, growing the basil on in Scotland, you really want to be growing it inside to get a good basil plant. So yeah, what we like I say, these are between sort of like 4 and 6 weeks old, and at this point it's probably a good time to move them on to bigger pots. When you buy your herbs in pots from the supermarket, you normally see sort of like 10 or 12 plants all crammed into a pot this size. And that works. People you can harvest your herbs from that, but typically it's hard to keep those plants going just because they get root bound and they're really sort of like eating up all of the nutrients in the compost, and they tend not to last so well. Whereas the basil plant, a single plant like that, you can grow up to this sort of size, and you get all the side shoots growing off of it, and you can continually harvest it throughout the summer. So I would pot these on maybe to a pot this sort of size and larger, just with some regular sort of like general purpose compost. It might be an idea to include a fertilizer in there, maybe like fish blood and bone, or some chicken manure, just a small little handful mixed into the compost, just to feed it some nutrients. But yeah, just pop them on. Let me just remove a bit of this. Let's take that one. So generally, when we are potting on, we'd like to see the roots emerging just to the outside of the pot. This one's probably a little bit on the young side. Let's just pop it in there, just making sure that all of the root system is going down. There we go, very simple process. And we would just water that in, and yeah, that would be good to go for the rest of the summer, and hopefully in a nice sunny spot on your windowsill you get a really good basil plant from that. You're going to know that's basil, and grow that on. There's a couple of the herbs here that are looking really similar. Now, experts, of which I wouldn't describe myself as a herb expert, but experts would be able to tell the difference there. I can't. There is one way of telling the difference. That's coriander, and this is the parsley. If you just rub the leaves, you'll get the scent of the two. The other way of telling the difference, of course, is this one's labelled coriander. So that's an easy thing to do, but really important when you're sowing your parsley seeds and your coriander seeds, keeping the label in there so that you know what you're growing. But yeah, all of the rest of them, bar the basil, are fine to grow on in pots like this, outside, and once you've got your plants established, just making sure that you're keeping the compost moist, but not overwatering.
Yeah.
Remember you saying earlier about some of it is a problem, but more often the problem is just not giving them enough water and making sure that the compost remains quite moist. I do find with basil that a really good watering, sort of like every sort of like 4 or 6 days, depending on how warm and dry it's been, is a better tactic than watering every day or anything like that, just because it seems to not really enjoy being in really soggy compost. Right, any other questions about herbs? I don't know if that's everything that...
So with the basil, if you were to give it a really good soaking every 4 days or whatever in the house, would you put it in a bowl of water to let it soak up, or would you pour
good
it
question.
down?
You can, either way, it's fine.
Yeah.
Probably
Just from
keeping
the top.
the water off the leaves, especially in sort of like really hot sunny days, keeping the water off the leaves is a good thing, or else you might get some scorch marks on, on the leaves. But just sitting them in water is a really good way of watering, so you can avoid that. But otherwise just
And does that keep the nutrients in the soil if they soak it up then? Because always, if you water from the top, it looks like the water's got a colour. Is that all the nutrients coming out of the soil?
Not necessarily. No. There's a finite amount of nutrients in that compost. Eventually, either they're going to leach out, through the water running through it, or it can be used up by the plant. That's why at the start I was suggesting just adding a bit of fertiliser if you wanted to keep your herbs growing on for a long time, so that they can have that nutrient resource to feed on. And just going back to the supermarket plants, I think their fertilisers are sort of like quite fast releasing fertilisers, which means that you get that big impressive herb growth initially, but they can tend to soon sort of like run out.
Yeah, they die off. Really.
Yeah, which is why they tend not to grow on so much. Whereas those fertilisers I mentioned, the fish blood and bone and the chicken manure, tend to be a bit slower releasing.
Okay, great.
So lend themselves more to the herbs growing on a little bit.
Brilliant. So
there we go. There's some quick sort of like introduction to the herbs. If you wanted to take some away, we've got oregano. Have the basil.
Okay, I would love one.
There's the coriander and the